All right. Okay. Let's see. Why am I not being the speaker? Oh boy. Anyways, so let's get started. Oh, okay. It is recording me as the speaker, even though on Zoom it's not showing me. So I spoke very briefly about last night about this being a hard subject, about this being something that people avoid thinking about, avoid talking about. And it is different from culture to culture, but in general, it is a human universal that death is not something that is pleasant to think and to talk about. All right, we've come up with all kinds of various different ways of working with that, but that doesn't make it pleasant. And you can even see the time of the Buddha, right? Many of you might be familiar with the famous story of Kisa Gotami. And I like to start this retreat off with this story. One, because most people know it, and two, because it's very impactful. Okay? So Kisa Gotami is a woman at the time of the Buddha. And the story goes that she was married, and her and her husband were having trouble conceiving a child. And of course, that brought her lots of flack from her in-laws and people complaining about her and not liking her because she can't conceive and all of these things. And so she was really stressed out and really kind of anxious about this. But then she was actually able to become pregnant, and she had the child. And the story doesn't really go into detail, perhaps how old the child was or how the child died, but the child died. And of course, you have the scene of this grieving mother having this, the dead child and wanting to do something about it. And she thought, there are all kinds of various sadhus, various ascetics and mystics and stuff that are coming through. Maybe one of them can bring my child back. And she heard of the Buddha, right? The Buddha had among the best reputations at the time. And so she went to the Buddha and asked the Buddha, can you bring my child back? Please bring my child back. And the Buddha says, okay, go around the town and bring me a mustard seed from a house. And Kisa goes, oh, really? That easy? No problem. Everybody has mustard seeds in the house. Mustard seeds are very common. But the Buddha says, no, there's a catch. Bring me a mustard seed from a house where there has been nobody who died. And so Kisa Gotami, for the love of her child and wanting to bring the child back, just, okay, I'm going to do this. There has to be somebody. So she went out going door to door. Do you have a mustard seed? Has anybody died in the house? And a third of the town, somebody died in the house. A half of the town, somebody died in the house. She's starting to get a little losing hope. 3/4 of the town. almost to the end. And finally, she could not find one house in all the town where somebody had not died. And she became dejected and despondent. And she went back to the Buddha, crying and dejected and saying, I couldn't find one house where somebody had not died. The Buddha says, yes, this is how it is. That which is liable to be born is liable to die. Right? The Buddha gave this lesson to Kisa Gotami. Right? And it was a hard lesson, but it was something that she needed to hear. Okay? To realize that this is not just her. Right? This is everybody. So then the story goes that she actually kind of snapped out of her, the kind of grief and haze that she was in, and she understood the Dhamma, and she actually became a bhikkhuni. She became one of the most well-known bhikkhunis, the female monastics, and became awakened after that. And so the question is, raise your hand if you've experienced the loss of somebody, family, friends. I mean, there might be somebody, some people just have long-lasting relatives, right? I've met people who are like 50 years old and they still have their parents and they've never experienced a major death. And I said, wow, that's amazing. I mean, you're going to eventually, but holy moly, right? I've kind of had the opposite. I mean, I have both my parents with me, but I've had a lot of loss from a young age that I remember very well. But this is just shows you, right, that if Kisa Gotami came to our houses, we couldn't give her that mustard seed. This is all of us. This is our nature, right? The Buddha teaches us about the characteristics of existence. The Buddha teaches us about dukkha. Dukkha, variously translated as suffering, stress. This word is a very interesting word. It's the first noble truth. And it is an important word for us to understand. It's very hard to translate this word into just one English word. It's almost impossible because it encapsulates so much. But the Buddha gives us a definition. What is dukkha? Birth is dukkha. Aging is dukkha. Sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair are dukkha. Not getting what one wants is dukkha. Being separated from people, places, and experiences we hold dear is dukkha. In essence, the five aggregates subject to clinging are dukkha. That's the Buddha's definition for dukkha. There's another way you can, my preferred way of all the different ways from all the different teachers that I've heard describe or try to translate dukkha. I prefer this one the best because I think it makes the most sense. The du, there's these two prefixes, du and su. Sukha, you guys probably know what sukha is, happiness, pleasant. Dukkha, unhappiness, unpleasantness, right? Or difficult. So the du is this unhappiness, unpleasant, difficult. Ka means to bear, not like the animal. I mean, like you're bearing a load on your shoulders. So you could think of dukkha as that which is difficult to bear. Aging is difficult to bear. Sickness is difficult to bear. Loss of loved ones is difficult to bear. This is all dukkha. This is dukkha because we don't see things as they are. The Buddha talks about anicca. Right? Anicca is translated often as impermanence. And again, it's an okay word, but it's so overused. Even outside of Buddhist circles, everybody, all New Age people and secular and this and that, everybody talks about impermanence. And you can kind of lose the meaning. And so what I did, years ago, I looked it up in the Pali English dictionary and there were other meanings to it. And when I saw these other meanings, I actually gained a deeper insight into it. So nicca means permanent, stable, dependable. Anicca means impermanent, unstable, undependable. When I saw that, I had a little bit of a vision in my insight. And it was me like adrift at sea, like a shipwreck. And I'm trying to grasp onto these flotsam to push myself out of the water. Trying to stay above water. And every time I push myself up, it breaks and I fall back in. And what I realized was that this is what we do. This is what I do. I assume something, I want something to be stable, to be permanent. But every time I try to grasp to something that, thinking that it's stable and it's permanent, it's unstable. It's impermanent. It's undependable. Think about these various things. Your body, right? There's a pretty good mix of old and young here. Those of you who are older already know that you can't depend on the body. The body starts to fall apart, right? Your relationships. What's stable? What's dependable? Your car. In the end, nothing is dependable. Nothing is stable. Nothing is permanent. This is a very hard thing to understand. Because of course, when I'm talking about impermanence as it were, people are like, oh yeah, I understand impermanence. Yeah, everything's changing with every breath. There's new cells and whatever. That's just an intellectual understanding. Do you want to know if you really understand impermanence? Later today, your car breaks down, right? Your spouse dies. The internet doesn't work. Check your response and your reaction. Then you'll know if you really understand impermanence, right? And unless there's any awakened beings here, which I'm definitely not, and if you're awakened, you should not be at my retreat. But unless there's any awakened beings here, none of us really experientially fully understand anicca. We get glimpses into it. That's why we start to understand. And so when we have something like our bodies, like a relationship, right, with people, and we like it, we attach to it, we hold it dear, right? We try to grab onto it and we want it to never change, to never go away. And the stronger we grab, the more it slips through our fingers. That's dukkha. Dukkha is not something that's out there, right? It's not something that is external. It's something that you create by grasping onto something, expecting it to be otherwise. This is what the Buddha means when he says that we create our own suffering. The number one thing in the definition of dukkha is birth. So I'll get to tell my favorite Buddhist joke. And it's even related to death. It's perfect for this retreat. My favorite Buddhist joke is this. Why did the Buddhist coroner get fired? Coroner is somebody who does autopsies to figure out how somebody died. The Buddhist coroner got fired because he kept listing cause of death as birth. That is the most pure Buddhist joke in existence that I've ever heard. Way more than like, make me a hot dog, make me one with everything and stuff like that. That's not really a Buddhist joke. But the Buddhist coroner joke is the really true Buddhist joke. The cause of death is birth. That's why birth. Well, of course, it is also suffering for the mother and for the child. It's not exactly a pleasant experience to go through, but on a more existential, transcendent way, it's suffering because once you're born, you have to grow old, grow sick, and die. And in the next talk, we're going to talk about that more. So this dukkha is something that is to be understood. And when we practice what the Buddha called marananusati, which is contemplation of death. Marana is death. Nusati is to contemplate, to investigate. When we practice mindfulness of death, investigation of death, we are practicing investigation of dukkha. We understand dukkha. And as we understand dukkha, we develop our insight, we lessen our suffering. This Dhamma is there, right? Do you know the qualities of the Dhamma? Sanditiko, directly visible. Right? Old age, sickness, and death, directly visible, even though we avoid it. And that's the next talk. Akaliko, unaffected by time. So it means it's not going to, death, old age, sickness, death is the same at the Buddhist time as it is today. Science has maybe allowed us, more of us to live longer and healthier and things like that. But we still grow old. We still get sick. We still die. Pasako, calling one to come and see. It's there. The Dhamma is calling us, investigate this. Really understand this Dhamma. See this Dhamma. Dhamma, as a Pali word, means a couple different things. It means nature. So literally, the nature of existence is Dhamma. The teaching of the Buddha is Dhamma. So these qualities are showing us that that the Dhamma is timeless. It's there for us to see. Opanayako, leading onwards. When you see this Dhamma, when you investigate this Dhamma, it leads towards peace, freedom, wisdom. And that's what this retreat, right? This retreat, when we investigate death, old age, sickness, when we face it bravely, when we don't run away from it, what that leads us to on the other end is peace and freedom. But it's not easy. It's not easy at all. I'm sure most of you have, we all raised our hand. Most of you have probably experienced the loss of somebody quite close to you. And you can think back about that, going through that process. And think, wow, I don't want to ever do that again. Or you can think, I'm so, even though they're gone, I'm so happy that they were part of my life. You can think both, actually. But once you get born, it's like you're on a roller coaster ride and you're locked in. I know some people, because we are kind of on the verge of, in some places in science, we're on the verge of people living longer and things like that, maybe like 1,000 years, like the elves and things like that. And I know some people are like, man, let me live long enough until I can live 1,000 more years. I've even thought about that in the past. But even if you live 1,000 years, you still have to deal with the same things. You still have to deal with loss. You still have to deal with dukkha. That doesn't run away. That doesn't, you cannot run away from that. There is a sutta, and by the way, all these suttas that I'm throwing at you, two things about the suttas. I come from a tradition, and I personally feel it's very important that what I'm telling you is directly from the suttas or heavily based in the suttas. The Bhante Ji would tell me, this is not Bhante Jayasara's wisdom. You teach Buddha's wisdom. And I said, okay. So obviously, we can give our own little insights and things like that. But the main thrust is to understand that what I'm talking about is coming from the Buddha, and you can actually go and read it for yourself, right? And so as I start to rapid fire throw suttas at you, you might be like, what? But don't worry, at the end of the retreat, I give you a reference sheet with all this stuff so that you can go look for yourself. And so there is to finish out this talk, because I think we started at 9, coming close to the end. But to finish out this talk, I want to talk to you guys about Pabbatopama Sutta, the simile of the mountain. And so the Buddha is talking to the king Pasenadi. And the Buddha and King Pasenadi is kind of complaining about his aristocrats a little bit. And Buddha says, King, what if you were to have scouts come from all four directions and they were to say, "Oh, great king, there are mountains as tall as the sky closing in on all directions, crushing everything in its wake, killing all beings. What would you do?" Right? And I want to give you, actually, I want to put it in the chat, the direct quote here, if I can get it. KJ knows, or some of you, those of you who've been around me long enough, you've heard many of these things before. But so then the Buddha says, should such a dire threat arise, a terrible loss of human life, when human birth is so rare, what would you do? This king was a very wise king. He's one of the top disciples of the Buddha. Sir, what could I do but practice the teachings, practice morality, doing skillful and good actions? I think that's the response. What could I do? I could only live as skillful, act as skillful, and practice the teachings as possible. That's all. You cannot stop these huge mountains. Right? And so the Buddha says, I tell you, great king, I announce to you, old age and death are advancing upon you. Since old age and death are advancing upon you, what would you do? Sir, what can I do but practice the teachings, practice morality, doing good and skillful actions? So I announce to you, I just told you, right? We understand. Once we're born, losing loved ones, growing old, getting sick, all of these things, we can't escape them. The mountains are closing in. The Buddha is telling us very close, no matter how young you are, right? No matter how healthy you are, the mountains are closing in. How do you act? How do you choose to face the mountains as they close in? King Pasenadi gives a very wise answer. Practice Dhamma, act skillfully. That's all I can do. And so with that, I think we'll end the first Dhamma talk. And we can do our guided meditation. So just like yesterday, set yourself up in a comfortable and stable position. Close your eyes. We'll scan through the body briefly, from the tips of the toes to the head. Bring your awareness to your toes. By bringing awareness, which means that place your awareness on any sensation or feeling you see as we scan through the parts of the body. Doing this for two reasons: to check and see if the posture is causing any unpleasant feelings, and to check and see if the way that the part of the body is placed is giving an imbalance in your posture. Bring your awareness up through your feet to the ankles and calves. If you're having trouble connecting with any sensations in the part of the body that you're at, you can prompt yourself by asking, what do I see? What do I feel? Bring your awareness up through the knees and into the thighs. What is the feeling of the thighs pressing against the chair or the couch? Bring your awareness up to the pelvis and the hips. Observe how the position of the pelvis and hips affects the posture, both the lower and the upper body, affects the position of the spine. Bring your awareness up through the abdomen and the chest. Check to see that the spine is not stretched and bent, but in its natural, comfortable position. Bring your awareness up to your shoulders. Make sure that they're hanging loosely. And down to your elbows and hands. How you place the elbows and hands has an impact on your posture. So investigate that. And finally, bring your awareness up to the head. Check that the chin is parallel to the floor. The head's not slouching or leaning here and there. And when you're done setting up the body in a comfortable and stable position, let the body go and take 3 deep breaths. Then let the breath go. From here on in, we do not wish to manipulate or control the breath in any way. We simply want to let the breath, the body, do what it has been doing from the moment you were born, and will continue to do so until the second you die. The body doesn't need you to do its job. Your job is just to observe, investigate, and abide with the breath. Follow the breath in, follow the breath out. Friends, we come to this meditation with many responsibilities, worries, and burdens. Many things that will seek to come to our mind as we practice. Family and friends, work and school, past and future. For the time of this meditation, practice laying down our burdens. Lay your world down and follow the breath. As you're following the breath, many things will seek to come to your mind. Your mind will become bored and run away across the world or the galaxy to the past or the future. Or an external distraction will arise like a sound. When this happens, you get distracted away from the breath. When you become aware, acknowledge that you've been distracted. Practice letting go of the distraction by neither getting agitated and pushing it away, nor by getting excited and grasping onto it, but just by letting it be, giving it no energy and returning to the breath. So acknowledge, let go, and return every time you're distracted from the breath. Continue to follow the breath as I give instructions. As I said last night, the guided meditations and contemplations, the practices that I will be sharing with you, use both words and visuals. You can choose to use one or the other or both. As we do our guided meditations, if at any time you're overwhelmed and you feel like you need to take a break, no problem, take a break. Like I said last night, don't quit. Be courageous. Take your break and come back whenever you feel up to it. These practices will bring up various emotions and thoughts and feelings. We have to do our best to stay with them. The Buddha says that patient endurance is the best meditation. See if we can patiently endure that which arises and use it as an object of our investigation to develop our insight. Repeat the words. I may die today. I may die tonight. I may die at any time. Because life is uncertain, but death is certain. Repeat. I may die today. I may die tonight. Because life is uncertain, but death is certain. Repeat the words. I, who may die at any time, am subject to old age, to aging. I am not exempt from aging. Repeat. I am subject to illness and disease. I am not exempt from illness and disease. I am subject to death. I am not exempt from death. Repeat. I will be separated from everyone and everything that I hold dear. Repeat. I am the owner of my actions, heir to my actions. My actions are my relative. Whatever I do, good or bad, to that I shall be the heir. Repeat. I may die today. I may die tonight. I may die at any time. Because life is uncertain, but death is certain. Reflect on the many ways that you could die today. You could die from health issues like heart attacks, strokes. You could die from accidents. Many different ways. A meteorite could come down from the sky and hit you. A car can come busting through your house. There are many, many different ways that you could die today. From the common to the rare. Observe the mind when you reflect on some of the ways that you can die. Perhaps the mind laughs, thinking it's silly or impossible. Throughout all of our meditations, really reflect and watch the mind and the mind's reaction to these contemplations. There is no guarantee that all of us or any of us will be alive at the end of the day or the end of this retreat. Repeat. I am subject to aging. I am not exempt from aging. I am subject to death. I am not exempt from death. You can reflect upon all those who have gone before you. people who you knew in your life but are now gone. You're no different than them. You're not exempt. One day too, you will die. I am subject to illness and disease. I am not exempt from illness and disease. I will be separated from everyone and everything I hold dear. Just as you are subject to old age, sickness, and death, so too everyone you know. No one is exempt. You may know somebody for a year or 10 or 50, but eventually there will be separation. I am the owner of my Kamma, heir of my Kamma. Have my actions as my relative. Whatever actions I do, good or bad, skillful or unskillful, to that I shall be the heir. I am subject to aging. I have not gone beyond aging. I am subject to death. I've not gone beyond death. I'm subject to illness. I've not gone beyond illness. I will be separated from everyone and everything that I hold dear. I am the owner of my actions, heir of my actions. Have my actions as my relative. Whatever I do, skillful or unskillful, wholesome or unwholesome, to that I shall be the heir. Reflect on the fact that not only are you subject to these 5 facts, but so are all beings. Think of all the people that you've watched in your life grow old, deal with sickness, and die. You are not exempt from these, nor is anyone else. I may die today. I may die tonight. I may die at any time. Because life is uncertain. But death is certain. I am subject to aging. I am not exempt from aging. Reflect and observe how this body of yours has changed over the years you've been alive. I am subject to illness and disease. Contemplate your experiences with illness and disease, both what you've experienced and also what you have witnessed others experience. I am subject to death. I am not exempt from death. Reflect on the deaths of those who have gone before you, the various ways that they died, peaceful or not, over a long time or a short time. Reflect on the various ways, even in your own experience, that you've seen people pass. Cancer and car accidents, sudden heart attacks, or even violence. Observe what arises in your mind and in your body, feeling as you do so. Take a break if needed. All that is dear and pleasing to me, I will become separated from. Reflect on all the people that have come in and out of your life, like a stream people you knew for a short time or long time. In your life and then out. Various experiences besides the people. Experiences that were pleasant and joyful, and you wanted to keep experiencing for some time. But eventually there was separation. I am the owner of my actions, heir of my actions, and my actions as my relative. Whatever I do, good or bad, to that I shall be the heir. Reflect on your actions and the results of those actions in the past. Skillful things that you have done that bore skillful results. Unskillful things that you've done that bore unskillful results. Reflect on how, when you perform an action, you own it, no one else. You alone will be the one who bears the fruit of that action. slowly begin to open your eyes. Become aware of the room that you're in and the live stream. It's 10:40 for me now. So we'll take a 5-minute break and we'll come back for the meditation, mindfulness eating section after that. So 10:45, we'll come back. So take a break, bathroom break and such if you need to.
Thank you, Bhante.